Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slash Filmcast. Actually, you know what? I'll just say, with me is, and then you say Jeff Kanata, and then I'll introduce Brad, okay?
Fair enough.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slash Filmcast, the official podcast of SlashFilm.com. I'm David Chen, and with me is...
Jeff Kanata.
And Devindra Hardwar, not here today. I think he's at South by Southwest, right? So we needed to soldier on with this week's episode, regardless of Devindra's presence. But we hope he's having a great time down there. In the meantime, we have a great pinch hitter. Bradford Oman is the weekend editor and staff writer at SlashFilm.com. He goes under the name Ethan Anderton on the site. Brad, welcome back to Slash Filmcast. How are you doing today?
I'm great. It's good to be back.
Brad, you wrote a review for Kong Skull Island, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So looking forward to chatting about that movie with you. In the meantime, wanted to just mention a couple things. Firstly, we're recording this episode like a little bit early. We're recording just a few days after the last episode, so there's not going to be a what we've been watching or anything like that. Instead, all we're going to do is review Kong Skull Island, and then we have a nice After Dark for you. Now, I need to admit, I made a mistake, Jeff Kanata. In the last episode of the Slash Filmcast, I said, hey, there's going to be an After Dark today, and then we never did one. So
yeah, no, that's a lie. That's called a lie.
So a lot of people, tweeted and emailed said, hey, Dave, I think you left the After Dark out of the episode. Nope, we simply didn't record it. So
we will today.
We will today. So there's definitely going to be an After Dark today. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, find more episodes of our podcast at slashfilmcast.com. Email us at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. But yeah, let's get straight to our review of Kong Skull Island. I'll put the trailer here for Kong Skull Island. All right. So, is it a spoiler to say that this movie takes place in the same universe as like Godzilla, like the same cinematic universe, or is that?
No, that's a very well-known fact.
Okay.
I don't think it has anything to do with the movie, really.
Yeah, I was just going to say in the way of introduction,
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, here we go. That was from the trailer for Kong Skull Island, the new film by director Jordan Vogt Roberts. I'm going to read the plot summary from IMDb. A team of explorers and soldiers travel to an uncharted island in the Pacific, unaware that they are crossing into the domain of monsters, including the mythic Kong. This movie has an amazing cast: Tom Hiddleston, Samuel L. Jackson, Brie Larson, John C. Reilly, John Goodman, Corey Hawkins, and a bunch of other very talented folks. And this is kind of one of those movies where a big studio took a indie filmmaker who had, until this point, only made kind of small, contemplative, but very good movies, and gave them a massive budget to make a blockbuster. I'm thinking other examples of this include Colin Trevorrow with Jurassic World, and also Gareth Edwards with Godzilla. And it has worked out to varying degrees of success in the past. But Brad Oman, in your review of Kong Skull Island at slashfilm.com, you seem to think it worked out really well. I'm going to quote from the review here. Overall, Kong Skull Island is one gnarly monster movie that doesn't hide the monsters in the darkness or create tension by having them lurk in the background. Instead, it puts monsters front and center in the spotlight, and they come through with shining colors. Kong has never been more thrilling, and his nasty opponents make for such compelling monster fights that you'll be even more disappointed in the fact that we didn't get to see Godzilla do this much in his own return in 2014. Kong Skull Island never loses steam. It plows through an endless array of vicious monster attacks, all presented through a lens that masterfully captures the action scenery and delightfully grim adventure that Jordan Vogt Roberts has assembled on screen. That is a ringing endorsement. So let's talk about this idea of not hiding the monsters, right? Like, I think one thing we've heard about this movie is that it does not hide the monsters like a movie like Godzilla. Godzilla was only in maybe 20 minutes out of the 2-hour runtime of that film. But you seem to really appreciate the fact that Kong takes a huge part of this movie's runtime. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like right from the get-go, as soon as the army unit and these explorers arrive on the island, you see Kong in full view. Like he's not hiding. He's just standing there after the bombs are dropped on the island, waiting to meet these people who are starting to mess with his home. So it's first of all, you see Kong right away, but then the monsters that all show up throughout again, they come out in plain sight during the day. There's no, it's not nighttime, so they're not obscured by the darkness or anything like that. They're all out in the brightness, and they all fight Kong throughout the movie. And I don't think we've had a monster movie like that in a while. Godzilla, they really obscured him for most of the movie until he got his big shiny moment to fight the Mutos, around the third act. And so even something like Cloverfield, they kept that monster secret for a long time. You don't really get to see much of him in that movie either. And so a monster movie on this scale with this kind of action is something that felt really refreshing to me.
How about you, Jeff Kanata? Do you appreciate that they showed you, the full Monty in terms of monsters, or would you have preferred they kept a little bit more obscured?
I mean, Kong has no pants, so it is the full Monty.
Yeah.
There's. I kept wanting
He
to see.
He also has no genitalia as well. So
well, it's you can argue that it's under some fur. I don't know. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of that. I don't want to. But I was the tone of this movie made me wonder at several times if we were gonna have our intrepid band of humans run into a like school bus size Kong droppings, because I felt like that was in the tone of this movie, certainly possible. This movie starts like 20 minutes of pretty much the worst character establishment I've seen outside of a Michael Bay movie. I mean, it is straight from the Michael Bay playlist. It is literally just quick flashes of the most lip service, shorthand, like, these are who these people are. Make sure there's no downtime. People are going to get bored. We better put music to this. This is, oh God, quick. This guy's a badass. Okay, moving on. She's cool. Okay, moving on. It is impatient. It is abrasive. It is uninteresting. It is terrible.
Yeah, let's talk actually just before you move on from that point. Like we talked about this movie Green Room that we saw last year, the Jeremy Saulnier movie, and how that writer-director hates exposition, right? He hates people talking in ways that feel unnatural. Right. This movie is the complete opposite of that. Kong Skull Island opens with people just stating exactly who they are, what they're doing, what their life mission is. There is no mystery, and there's also very little intrigue in these characters. It's just
and
straight
the
up.
Relationships between them are preposterous and bizarre.
Yeah.
Everything is given as little time as possible. Scenes are 3 lines. We're in, we're out, and the transition is loud, rockin' music. It is a movie that is entirely impatient. But then you learn why it's impatient, what it's impatient for. The 20 minutes at the beginning, I was convinced I was going to hate this movie. And I was like, ugh, this is the Michael Bayification of all of this crap. Then the action starts, which is what they were impatient to get to. And I had an absolute blast with this movie.
There it is.
I am so on Brad's page. I echo everything he said. Every moment in this movie that's spent with our characters is a waste of time. Every moment is poorly done. I mean, aside from some lovely John C. Reilly work, he's a blast and a joy in this movie. But every other character, I genuinely could not care less about. They are fodder for action sequences, and my goodness, do those action sequences make up for that stuff. I have often been chided by audiences of the things that I make for not being able to have fun in a Transformers movie, for example, of being distracted by all of the inane things that happened and that happened with the characters, the way people talk, the stupid plot holes, the garbage characters, all that stuff. I can't get past. I can't explain why I can get past it here, but I think it is what Brad was talking about in the idea of it is the kind of monster movie we don't get anymore. I mean, I guess you could equate it to big giant Transformers fighting each other, or big giant Pacific Rim. What were those things called?
Kaiju.
Kaiju, yeah, fighting each other. But it is so inventive. Every action sequence is wildly different than the last. They are all completely over the top. I was bursting out laughing with things that were happening because the movie, I think for the most part, the movie knows what kind of movie it is. There are times when I go, wait, no, you're not trying to pull off that, are you? Because you're not that kind of movie. And so there are times when I think, well, it does think it's trying to create some kind of serious emotional thing, when really that's not at all what's best about this movie. When it's clicking on all cylinders, when it's just showing me nutty, over the top, giant scale action sequences, I am having a ton of fun with this movie. When, for example, like the very end of this movie, which we'll talk about in spoilers, I was like, no, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to do that, because that's not the movie we're in. But I want to talk about, 5 or 6 wonderful moments in spoilers that I was just applauding and laughing and having a great old time. I mean, we get full Samuel L. Jackson in this movie. Get this motherfucking Kong off my motherfucking Skull Island. It's like it is a B movie done with AAA budget, and when it's doing that, I was just having a blast.
Interesting. I think a lot of people really enjoy this movie, and certainly the Rotten Tomatoes indicates that critics are on board with this. I did not enjoy the movie as much as you guys, but I will talk a little bit about the things I liked about it. I think the visual effects are absolutely incredible. I think that particularly the creation of Kong, he is the most believable character in the entire movie.
Yes,
he is the most human character in the movie. He's the one I feel the most sympathy for. He's the one who feels the most fully realized, most fleshed out. I actually understand his motivations, unlike most of the humans. I'm exaggerating a little bit, of course, but I thought he's a wonderful creation. And I think visually the movie overall looks great. The island, the production design, it just all looks very convincing to me as a place that's kind of not out of this world, but kind of not someplace you'd easily recognize, kind of exotic and weird and off kilter and maybe full of danger. And so just the look of it, the feel of it, I was on board with. I think what else? I think some of the set pieces were also really great. Jeff, you mentioned this helicopter scene. Not going to get too much into it, but there's a scene involving helicopters that I think is spectacularly done.
It's spectacular.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's the moment where I sat up in my chair and went, oh, maybe we're going to have some fun here.
Yeah. And I think John C. Reilly also, really works well. He probably is the character that works the best for me out of all the characters, and the human characters.
And that character could have been terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've seen that kind of character over and over in movies. I think Woody Harrelson plays that in the movie 2012. He's basically that insane guy.
Wow.
And
obscure reference, Jeff, but nicely done.
Yeah, it's a movie no one should see. But I feel like I've seen that comedic turn, and it so often falls flat, and John C. Reilly just nails it. He's just a blast to watch.
I agree. He is able to balance pathos and vulnerability and also wackiness and intuition. This is a guy who knows what's up. He's been on this island for a while. He knows what's going on. So I thought his character was great and well played. I think, like the 2014 Godzilla movie, the big problem with this movie is that you don't give a crap about any of these people other than John C. Reilly. You don't care about what happens to any of them. Their relationships are wildly implausible. And anything that's not action, I think, is very poorly done. The characterizations, what motivates these characters. And not only that, I don't think the movie did enough to get me to buy these characters, even on a surface level.
Dude, I couldn't agree more with you, Dave. Every moment that's not action in this movie is garbage.
Yeah, I mean, even Tom Hiddleston, he's introduced as James Conrad. Nice reference there, as the ultimate badass. And actually, the introduction scenes are pretty good. Like you said, very Michael Bay. If you watch Armageddon, that movie, Michael Bay is able to introduce characters in 2 lines and an establishing shot of the character, and then you kind of get that character.
And there's like 14 of them.
Right, and there's 14 characters. There's a ton of characters. And that's one of the things that this movie does as well. But then with the case of like James Conrad, played by Tom Hiddleston, he does almost nothing badass in this movie. You know, like there's like one scene where arguably he does something cool, but really the movie introduces him as a badass and then does nothing to really follow that through. Samuel L. Jackson's supposed to be a character that's going slowly insane. I didn't really buy it. You know, I think he's a badass, but he does things in this movie that I didn't feel like the character was there. So I'm saying I'm okay with action movies that have one-note characters, but this movie like had one note written on the page, and I felt like didn't even get me to that point where I believe the one note. You know what I'm saying?
You're not wrong.
Yeah, I appreciate your agreement. Brad, what do you think? Do you agree that the characters are pretty worthless in this movie?
I agree for the most part. I wouldn't go so far as to call anything without monster action garbage or say that the characters are worthless, only because, like we talked about, John C. Reilly is fantastic. He's definitely the saving grace of the human characters in this movie. He brings a lot of heart to it, and even if you watch the Kong Skull Island trailers and you were like, oh, that character's going to be stupid, I guarantee you will be surprised by how much you love him as a character, because a lot of it is a testament to how great of an actor John C. Reilly is. But they just do a really good job with making you like that character for a variety of reasons. I totally agree that Tom Hiddleston is completely oversold as a character that's supposed to be cool, but then they do nothing with him. The bond that is supposed to exist between him and Brie Larson's character doesn't feel like it's genuine. I do love.
Oh, there was a bond. I did not even.
Right, yeah, they hugged at the end. Remember?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. No, good point.
Samuel Jackson, I actually disagree with what you said there about how you don't necessarily buy into like his turn to crazy, because I think that moment when you meet his character, you see that he's about ready to go home, but he's clearly not ready for it. And I think you get the idea that he's a guy in the military who only feels right and at home when he's in the shit, and facing somebody like Kong who kills his men and is this, force he hasn't dealt with before, is like him getting back into that groove, and like it's his like end all be all. Like this is his, final mission, and he's like going all out for it. So I totally bought into that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like I get his motivation and believe it on a basic level, but it feels to me so much like this movie is going for an Apocalypse Now kind of feel. And this is very obvious when you look at the IMAX poster of Kong Skull Island. It's like a direct comparison to Apocalypse Now. A lot of the look of the movie is Apocalypse Now-ish in terms of the color palette. And so it felt to me like they were going for something grander with the Samuel L. Jackson character, something more insane with him. That I don't think
what part of it's set during the Vietnam War do you not understand, Dave?
Good point. You're right. That's good shorthand for this guy is clearly out of his gourd. It didn't really. I agree with you, Brad. Like on a basic level, it functioned. That like this guy, I understand why he wants to take the steps he takes against Kong and so on, but I don't know that I bought him as a character who was really descending into madness, which I think is what the movie was trying to convey.
That's fair. But I also do think that as thin as the characters are, I think what helps it, and at least for me, that I wasn't completely bothered by it, was that the actors that portray them do a very good job with what little they are given. You have Shea Whigham, and you have John Goodman, Corey Hawkins, Jason Mitchell, Toby Kebbell, and I think that they all get at least one good moment to like where they have like their scene that kind of defines their character, and it's not always the best. It's not super deep, but then like when I think about something like Aliens, I don't think all of the crew members in Aliens feel like they're more than thin characters either. I would say I've said there's a couple that work, but on the same scale, Aliens is the kind of movie that Kong Skull Island is, and you don't care about all those characters either, and it works just fine.
Sure, but you care about the main characters in Aliens,
but they also seem like real human beings.
That's yeah. I bought into the characters more than you guys did, obviously, but I maintain that the star of the movie is Kong, which is why it works so well when it's around him, and the human star, even though they've hidden it, is John C. Reilly. Like it amazes me that how much they're not pushing it, but I understand why. But he is the core of the movie. That's why the movie starts with establishing how he got on the island and what he's doing there, and like
that's
why,
a big,
and why
that's a big spoiler.
Is it?
I think you just dropped a major spoiler.
Yeah, I don't think that's obvious from the trailer, Brad. It's okay though. We'll take that out if that's okay with you.
That's sure.
Yeah. But you were just talk more generally about John C. Reilly being the main thing of the movie.
Yeah, no, he's the heart of the movie. Like he's the main human character for reasons that you'll find out when you watch the movie. And so because of that, I don't mind that the rest of the characters feel mostly disposable.
There's a guy. I think he's sort of he's the real jacked guy. I think he's kind of vaguely Asian looking.
Vaguely Asian looking.
I don't know. Maybe Pan Pacific. I don't know. Pacific Islander. I
think you're talking about Eugene Cordero.
Okay.
Yeah.
It got to the end, and I there's a shot with him standing with everybody, and I went, did he ever say a line? I can't remember if that guy ever spoke.
No, yeah, he definitely spoke.
Did he?
Definitely spoke, yeah.
And the thing is, and the other reason I think that I'm fine with the characters is because there are so many other minor characters who you think are going to be a big deal, but they don't end up doing much. Like Tane Jen is there just to clearly help the international box office, at least in the U.S. cut of the movie. I don't know if she gets more to do in the cut that will be shown in in Asian markets.
Let's actually pause a minute on this. Okay, so there's a character played by actress Tian Jing who shows up for no reason, 20 minutes into the movie. The character's name is San. Shows up 20 minutes during the movie. Has I am not exaggerating 4 lines in the entire film. And you think, oh, well, when she's introduced, oh, that character is going to be a major, significant, factor in the movie. Nope, not at all. International movies have now taken to actually having different cuts of the movie. Like I think when Iron Man 3 came out, that was a big thing with Iron Man 3, right? There's a different cut of the movie where the Asian characters have a larger role in the movie to make that movie play better in China. And it felt to me like this is a similar thing, right? Like that you have this character played by Tian Jing who is a complete meaningless character in Kong Skull Island in the U.S. cut, but maybe in the Chinese cut of the movie, she actually has a major role or some kind of subplot. So yeah, totally bizarre though in the American version. But to your point, Brad, you were saying all these other characters are really weirdly shoveled in there, but John C. Reilly kind of redeems the movie. My position is that he's not quite enough to redeem the film.
That's fair. I think one of the things that also makes up for the fact that they're disposable is that you have these big names playing, or at least moderately well-known names playing some of these characters, and I think that helps make for much more of a surprise when monsters start picking off some of them. I don't want to spoil any specific deaths or anything like that, but it makes it all the more shocking when all of a sudden a monster shows up and there goes another character. I think there's plenty of people that maybe you're not expecting to get taken out, right, because you recognize them, and I think that also helps.
Yeah, no, fair enough. All right, guys, any other thoughts on Kong Skull Island before we get to the spoiler section?
It's big and dumb, and I had fun.
Everything about this movie is big. The emotions are big, the character motivations are big, the characterizations are big. Kong himself seems to be roughly 10 times the size of previous versions of Kong, right?
Yeah.
I think original King Kong was around 30 to 40 feet tall, if I'm not mistaken. This one is way higher than that. He's the size of a skyscraper,
Right.
He's not a person that would climb up a skyscraper. He's the size of a skyscraper.
Yeah, I mean, he has to be as big as to fight Godzilla, so that makes sense.
Right. Well, that's another thing is this movie theoretically is part of the studio's bid to have a shared monsters universe, right? It's kind of their version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We'll see this weekend at the box office whether it actually plays out. We're recording this before the movie's actually out in theaters. The soundtrack, guys. It felt to me pretty on the nose. I don't know. It felt to me
there's some sort of rule that says if you set something during the Vietnam War, you have to have Credence. You have to have wall-to-wall Credence Clearwater.
It just felt like a little much. Like having 1 or 2 songs, that are from that time period that everyone recognizes. It would feel like, okay, you're kind of setting a tone, but it felt like almost Suicide Squad-like in terms of how much it wanted to emphasize its music budget. and it did kind of get distracted. It kind of reminded me of other movies that this movie does not live up to, and I'm not even sure if it's even trying to live up to, you know? So I thought the soundtrack was a little bit overdone. But overall, Brad, sounds like you had a great time. Jeff Kanata, you had a great time. I thought the action was solid, but thought that everything else about the movie was left pretty wanting, and that kind of ruined my personal experience of the movie overall. But let's talk about some specific stuff in spoilers for Kong Skull Island starting right now. All right. Jeff Kanata, you have some scenes you wanted to run down, right?
Oh man, so many. I think the thing that's so fun about this movie is that it kind of what Brad was referencing when characters start getting picked off. It's fun because it really is a monster movie. It really is it has more in common with Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. It's just watching people die in hilarious ways and over the top, crazy, unbeatable odds, and that is it's so much fun. The movie is having a blast with it, starting with that helicopter sequence. Just seeing how Kong effortlessly takes them all down and how out of the blue that is, and we're sort of inside that experience with those people and just completely overwhelmed. The fact that there is nothing they can do to beat this guy feels awesome. It feels like, oh my God. I turned to the person sitting next to me that I went to the movie with, and said, when all of the helicopters went down, I was like, it would be awesome if it just said the end right now. It's just like Kong killed everybody. Done. But it goes on.
It is really ballsy that the movie hurriedly introduces you to 30 characters and then just kills half of them off in the first 15 minutes. I thought that was.
And some of them go out so ignominiously, it's not. There's no
honor in it,
right? I mean, one of my favorite moments in the whole movie is when that one guy, the sort of high-ranking dude, decides he's going to sacrifice himself in a very platoon, like he's got the 2 grenades. He's like, "Yeah, come get me," and it just like kicks him out of the way like a bitch.
Yeah,
it is so funny.
Why is that funny? I don't know.
It's not funny.
Was that supposed to be funny? Because I felt like it. You know what death it reminded me of? It reminded me of the personal assistant's death in the movie Jurassic World. You remember how her death was needlessly violent and gruesome, and it just felt like, why did you need to do that, movie? You could have just killed that person without having this huge spectacular show of how his big grand effort, his heroic effort, was completely worthless. It feels like it's part of a different kind of movie that's much more dark than the actual movie is.
Really?
But see,
Brad, weigh in on this. What do you think?
I think that the movie is that dark though. Like, this movie was way more gruesome and like even gory than I thought it would be. And you talked about the Jurassic World kill. There's a kill that's very much like that, but even more gruesome in this, when John Ortiz gets picked up by the flying, lizard crazy bird things and gets limbs torn off. And there are so many moments.
Is not more gruesome. It's more gruesome in terms of limbs getting torn off, but the Jurassic World kill lasted like 10 minutes. I'm exaggerating.
So did this, dude. He was like, they're just all watching him, like, he's screaming. And they're picking him up, and he's still alive in the air for a long time, just screaming. And then
there are endless moments like that. Like, you think you're safe for for maybe a couple minutes, and then all of a sudden something else comes out of nowhere and starts killing more people.
John Goodman with the flash that keeps going off as he's going down the stomach of the monster, and it's still hitting the flash in the belly. Dude, when this movie knows what it's doing, when it knows it's making later Nightmare on Elm Street style, like, let's have fun watching how these kids die type, that's when those movies turned into that. The first Nightmare on Elm Street is a legit horror movie, but by Dream Warriors and on, it just becomes like, how inventive can we get with Freddy's kills? And the fun is watching this ridiculous, over the top murder of these kids. I think this movie is at its best when it's doing that stuff, because that's the fun, take it to 11 kind of feeling that you get, is just like, oh my God. And that's why I think there are moments that, like the very end, which we'll talk about shortly, where it's like you did not earn any of that. You didn't earn any of your character stuff. Where you're at your best is when you're making snakes on a plane. It's when that sequence with Samuel L. Jackson standing in the middle of fire, just staring down Kong for no reason. It's just it's B movie. It's embracing its B moviness, and that's when it's the most fun.
I think one of the things you just pointed out that I really actually enjoyed about the movie is the scale. There's a ton of images, shots of people just standing in front of Kong, and Kong obviously is a stand-in for the awesome power of nature, right? And seeing them there and seeing them at that size, even just in the poster, is really a sight to behold. But going back to the tone, I don't know. Like, I guess B movie status, like we're supposed to then revel in the deaths of these people,
Yeah, I think we are. I think that's what the fun of the movie is.
There were so many times when I was simultaneously horrified and shocked, but also laughing because of what was happening. Like it's that kind of entertaining.
Yeah, the guy that sits up, he's like, set up the what's the name of that big ass gun?
The Gatling.
Yeah, no, there's there's a specific name for it, but and he's like, and he sets it up on top of that like Triceratops head, and he's like, yeah, I'm awesome, and he goes out like a bitch. I mean, forgive my phrasing. I don't mean it to be any kind of. I just am using that phrase, but
I think I agree with you guys in terms of the tone. I think like my problem with the movie is not necessarily that all these people get killed in horrible ways. It's that I didn't care about a single one of them. I think if even in movies like Nightmare on Elm Street, I think some of those movies do a pretty good job of establishing those characters and making there be emotional stakes. And like Brad, like you said, this is why the John C. Reilly character is so important. But I wish there had been more than just the John C. Reilly character. I think I could have taken this horrible torture and gruesome murder of all these people if I had cared about the people who last until the end a little bit more. So
you're not wrong, David. I just feel like the reason I could have fun, I think, was that they were basically toys. They were little action figures being smashed by Kong. He steps on people. He throws. I mean, the beginning of the movie is like this body flying at you from the sun, screaming. And I feel like it's basically ragdoll physics from video games writ large. It's just a cacophonous medley of zany deaths, and I don't know. I was able to sort of shut off my logic sensors and have fun with it.
It's a cacophonous. Something of zany deaths. What did you say? What was that? That was very good.
Cacophonous medley of zany deaths.
It's a cacophonous medley of zany deaths. Very nice, Jeff. Brad, what were you going to say?
No, yeah, we touched upon this earlier too, and like I think what helps is that it's this B movie, but it's presented with this huge, AAA budget. And I think what also helps is the visuals in this movie are stunning and gorgeous. Like there's so many amazing, like even breathtaking shots of not just the monsters, but just the scenery and like even sequences that don't really necessarily mean anything in the larger scale of things. They just look cool. Like Tom Hiddleston's big moment is when he is running through an area where there's poison gas around. He has a gas mask on and he's wielding a samurai sword and just slicing monsters left and right. And like, there's no real reason for it to happen except it's just cool, and it's a very cool scene. And so I think seeing some of this stuff that would otherwise be silly be like taken care of, with such great visuals also helps. And I love little touches too. Like there's a sequence when in the opening when the helicopters are arriving, you get a quick insert shot of the Richard Nixon bobblehead. And then when one of those helicopters goes down, it's like a quick montage of all the stuff that's going wrong. There's one quick cut back to that Richard Nixon bobblehead before the helicopter crashes. And I love little stuff like that.
I think that like it just feels to me like the movie is reaching for something of grander significance. That's why it invests so much in like it doesn't invest that much in building up these characters, but invests something. It makes kind of hand wavy motions towards building up some of these characters' backstories and their relationships with each other, and I guess it feels to me like it fails in trying to get to something deeper and more weighty rather than unabashedly embracing its non-weightiness.
I agree. I totally agree, Dave. I totally agree, and I feel like no better time is that illustrated than the total impatient lip service given to uh, them creating some kind of kinship with Kong. There's like
Oh,
it is the most like shorthand, stupid, like, okay, they're cool with Kong, everything's cool. So when he saves them later, you'll understand why, because they have this kinship with the reason that they decide to go save Kong is because they had this moment. You understand it. You've seen movies before. We don't need to actually do it. We'll just like show you this sort of, stand-in for actual emotional connection because we all know the iconography. We'll do that and you'll understand and we can do it. It's like that's how this movie is with everything. And that's sort of the Michael Bayification, I think, that I'm talking about. It's like you're not actually establishing any emotional moments. You're creating a visual image that's shorthand for those feelings you're supposed to have, and we all know that is what that represents. So just take that, and then we'll get on to the fun stuff.
Yeah, some people were speculating that maybe it was like a telepathic connection in the Slack film cast. I think someone mentioned like maybe there was like telepathy going on in there, because otherwise, how else do you explain the fact that they go back for him at the end?
Well, they had that moment where she touched him like for no reason. She decided she's going to touch him, and then they touched him.
I don't think that's the real takeaway though for why they go back. Like I think that is meant to help. I don't think that's meant to be like the full reason, because you also have to remember the reason Kong is there is to protect those people who will otherwise be eaten by the skull crawlers. So not only are they going back to save Kong, but they're going back because they know Kong is the only person that's going to keep those people alive on that island from the rest of the monsters. So I think it's still not necessarily the most like emotional investment that you could have for giving the characters a reason to go save Kong, but I think it helps logistically as far as like within the confines of the narrative is concerned.
Oh no, the narrative function of that moment is completely clear. I think what Jeff is pointing to is that all it does is pay lip service to it. It's not a believable emotional turn for me.
I don't
touch him at the end.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, and I guess my question, like I'm thinking out loud here, but my question is then, why even bother with any of that? Like, wouldn't it have been a better movie if they just didn't give a crap about any of that stuff? And it's just like straight action,
yes.
And it was 90 minutes long instead. And
yes.
I think I would have liked the movie a lot better in that case.
You're right. Yes.
I mean, I think the movie already does feel like it moves very, very fast, though. Like, it was never a slog, or I never felt like it was slowed down, or I was bored, or anything like that. So, I don't know.
I was bored for significant chunks of it. I think, especially when they were splitting off into three, like they had been split into three survivor groups that have been, like needed to converge in some way. Anyway, I don't know why. I just did not enjoy this movie as much as you, and I think because I felt like we should evaluate movies on their own terms. Like you would never say of Fast and Furious 7 or 6, like, there wasn't enough character development, blah, blah, blah. That movie knows what it's going for, and it just does it really well. Or those movies, I should say. And this movie, I felt like, wanted to be a certain movie and then didn't really achieve that. And I feel like it should be evaluated that way. But I could be completely wrong. So
I think that, as I've been saying, there are moments when I think the movie knows exactly what it's doing. It knows exactly that it's trying to create this fun B monster film, and that's when it shines. That's when it is the most fun. But like the ending, which I think we should talk about, the sort of schmaltzy, sentimental, old style 8mm shot of John C. Reilly returning home. And it's played as this emotional moment, which, are we supposed to believe someone's filming it? Or why is it being shot that way?
Yeah, that was my biggest problem. Is I was like, who's shooting this footage?
Yeah. Or is this sort of it's like shorthand for it's a memory, or what's going on? I kind of felt like, are we supposed to think that Brie Larson like came with him and is recording this for some posterity? And then it's like it lingers in this moment of him seeing his wife and son, and it's played with such lack of self-awareness. It is played completely straight, and and as if we've been waiting to see this guy reunited with his family all movie long, when
Right.
he has been the comedic fun of he has been the comic relief the whole time. I don't care about him and his family.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't entirely agree. I do think that the sequence is misplaced as being the bookend of the movie. I would have much rather preferred it played during the credits instead. But I think that there's much more.
Well, some credits were playing while it was on screen. To be fair.
yes.
Well, towards the end. I think.
Yeah.
But I think that actually John C. Reilly is the only character that did earn that kind of ending, because even though he is comic relief, there's still plenty of heart and depth to that character. Like maybe it's just me because I'm from the Midwest, but like the stuff like him talking about the Cubs and like the way he talked about, thinking about whether or not his, wife would remember him or was waiting for him. Like I actually bought in that stuff mostly because I think John C. Reilly did such a great job with the character. So sure, he's funny and that kind of thing, but I think that emotional ending was earned on some level. I don't think that it was the best way to end that movie, but I think that it was still good for that character.
I agree with you, Jeff, that the ending kind of sums up a lot of my issues with the film. It feels like it's trying to be this kind of deeper Apocalypse Now-esque thriller that happens to have this gigantic Kong monster in it, but then ends up kind of failing at that and then just delivering on the B-movie action in, admittedly, a very big way and a very satisfying way.
I think that's proof to your point. I do. I as much as I want to give this movie credit for understanding what it's delivering, when you see that ending, you go, "Oh no, you don't know what you don't understand."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I think that's a really all right, guys. So as much as I've enjoyed talking about this movie with you, we should also mention before I move on that there was a stinger at the end. Do you guys stay for the stinger?
I did not. I only heard after I left that there was a stinger, a Marvel Universe-esque.
Oh, okay. So Jeff, actually, the stinger makes the ending with John C. Reilly make even less sense. Because what ends up happening is you find out that Tom Hiddleston's character and Brie Larson's character are trapped in a room, like they've been brought to some room after the incidents of Kong Skull Island. And Corey Hawkins' character comes in and says, "Hey, you're at Monarch. Welcome to Monarch. By the way, underneath the Earth, according to my theory, my sub-Earth theory or whatever, there's a whole like universe of creatures." And then he starts showing you these images,
cinematic universe of creatures,
cinematic universe, and he starts showing you photos that appear to indicate like Mothra. Photos of like Mothra art, right? Brad, am I characterizing this correctly?
Yeah, it's Mothra, Ghidra, and then like the big like finale of it all is like I don't think it's an actual photo. I think it's more like a cave painting or something, isn't it? Of Godzilla fighting. What's the name of the? Yeah,
it's a photo of a painting, is what I mean to say.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to black, and here's actually a really cool moment in the movie. Is you hear the Godzilla roar from the movie Godzilla, the 2014 Godzilla. Yeah. It's the same sound effect. And that is kind of an iconic sound effect because I heard it and I recognized it, Even though I've only seen that movie once, I was like, oh man, what that means. And I really appreciated that, just that sound effect was so effective. But yeah, Jeff, it makes the ending make even less sense because they just let John C. Reilly go, but then they kept everyone else. It raises some questions.
He's the least useful of them because he only spent 26 years there.
Yeah. Speaking of useful, why is Brie Larson even on this trip, guys? This is a top secret governmental trip, and she somehow gets on board to document it.
It's such a bummer to me because
it makes no sense.
She is such a great actress. I love her so much, and she literally is there to wear a tank top. And it sucks. It sucks.
She does virtually nothing in this movie. There is a nice moment with her and Kong at the end, but
dude, that's one of my favorite things. Is she's literally in his hand down the gullet of the monster. I thought that was so rad. And then it comes out and she's a mess. And then like a minute and a half later is completely pristine and fine.
What I do love about the scene though is like it's such a complete like subversion of the normal, Kong with the beautiful woman, and like rather than just like him carefully handling her, he just takes her and shoves her down that monster's throat and pulls all of its innards out. Like it just like I loved that sequence so much.
Yeah, it was pretty spectacular. You know what my favorite moment from the movie was? Like the one moment from the movie that genuinely surprised me was when that guy got his face impaled by that big spider thingy.
Oh
Yeah.
Because that just came out of like you did not even know that those creatures existed on this island. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like it just came out of like that was not in the universe of possibilities that I thought could happen to that guy.
That was one of the things I had in my head when right after they see Kong, they go down and they're in the jungle. I thought to myself, why is no one saying, "Hey, if that's here, what else might be here?"
Right. And to be honest, it kind of annoyed me. Oh, go ahead, Jeff. Finish what you're saying.
What I was just gonna say, and I kind of thought the movie was just gonna ignore that idea of the island having more crazy shit on it. But then you get into that spider sequence. I was like, oh my god, yes, awesome! It's full of crazy stuff. And another moment that's amazing is when he shoots that bird. He's like, ugly ass bird, and he shoots it, and then like 1,000 of those birds.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
That was a great moment. I don't know. I kind of wish the movie had done more to. It felt a little bit too random to me. You know, like, oh, we need to kill this guy off, so we'll have this other creature here. Oh, hey, this log he's sitting on also is a creature. You know, it just felt like there were, and it feels like John C. Reilly's character or other characters would kind of know what dangers lurk there. But I will say that the creatures that you do see are incredibly frightening, very well designed. It feels a lot more than like Pandora to me, like the Avatar world that everyone knows about from that culturally relevant movie, Jeff.
Yes.
That Pandora is kind of portrayed as, oh, this place is going to kill you. But then there's only like a couple creatures that you end up meeting that are dangerous. In this movie, it feels like, wow, like everything around you could kill you. I wish we had gotten even more of that sense of like menace, right? That there's instead it just felt like, oh, random thing comes and kills someone. And to me, that wasn't quite enough to build a sense of this world being menacing.
The other moment that's so great, and when he's like, yeah, watch out for those ants. It sounds like a bird, but it's a fucking ant.
Yeah, it's a fucking ant.
It's so great, man.
That was good. But do you know what I mean? I guess I feel like there's a difference between just randomly offing people and then creating a sense that this world itself is a threat. You know? Like there would be scenes when they need to get away from something and succeed. And that happened with that spider thingy, but not many other times. It does feel like this is a world full of things that could kill you. Like I would never want to visit Skull Island, you know.
Right.
But I wish more had been done to create that atmosphere. Instead, it didn't really feel like the movie was like I wanted to feel like every single scene these people could die at any second, and I never really felt that way.
I think to the movie's credit, I felt like, you know, Brad referenced this as well, that because there are all these big actors and some of them go out so abruptly, that I did feel like, okay, nobody's precious. Everybody is affable. You know, anything can happen at any given time. The out of nowhere-ness made it feel more like that, you know, crazy horror movie or crazy monster movie that it is, you know, that a guy can be having a conversation and then it be picked up by a bird and brought and taken away, or, you know, a guy could be talking and then a spider's leg goes through his head. All that stuff it did feel
so to you it worked then, yeah.
Yeah, it was surprising, and it that was the shock that led to laughter most of the time, you know, the thing that it gets set up or not set up, you know, the thing that comes out of nowhere or that's set up and then is subverted by, you know, several examples I gave earlier where like, this is the moment where the guy's awesome, and no, he's not awesome. He just got murdered by the thing.
Yeah. And you know, Brad, I think you were the one that brought this point up, but yeah, the people who die are kind of surprising. John Goodman playing Bill Randa does not make it to the end of the movie, right?
Yeah. John Ortiz is the guy that gets lifted up into the sky and gets torn apart by those bird things.
Right. Tian Jing, who plays San, makes it to the end of the movie for no reason. So yeah, it is kind of surprising. Like I was impressed by how many people they were willing to off.
I mean, I think
I don't know, Jeff. I think that moment when the guy like takes out the grenades and gets swatted into a wall,
It's
it
hilarious.
It felt very cheap and exploitative and like cruel to me. You know,
It's hilarious.
I think
He's
I
like,
think it is cruel, but I think that's part of the idea is like no one is safe. Any terrible thing can happen to any of these people.
yeah. I think Toby Kebbell is the one that goes out most unexpected. His death is off camera. It's like we've set him up as being the sort of this weird. By the way, all of that like Dear Billy crap is so bad.
yeah,
It's
that's what I'm
so
talking about.
bad.
Like, there's stuff like that. I wish it was more unabashed about how cruel it was to its characters. You know, I wish it was more like that it didn't have that kind of stuff. You know, about like trying to imbue these people with all these characteristics that no one gives a crap about.
But I think we're supposed to. I'm maybe giving the film more credit than it deserves, but I think with the Toby Kebbell in particular, I think we're supposed to put him in a place in our head where he's going to be awesome. You know, like he is set up as being. He's all alone. He's got that machete. He's kind of rad. He's got this, kid thing going for him. And then he dies very early in the movie, very abruptly. I think it's one of those things where it's supposed to be subverting our expectations about that guy.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, any other thoughts? Any other favorite moments from the movie, guys?
I mean, I think there are several incredible action sequences that are just worth the price of admission to see them on a big screen. I loved the sequence when Kong decides to have lunch by pulling that squid out of the water, and that was awesome. It was awesome.
It was great, yeah. And one thing I think the director is good at is getting the Spielberg face out of people. You know, there were a lot of good Spielberg faces where people see something that's like beyond their comprehension,
right?
And they have this look on their face that just evokes wonder. I really like that part. So. Yeah, I mean,
this is I coined a phrase talking about video games a while back, and I think this movie is a perfect example. It's more fun than it is good.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that, Jeff. I think I definitely. Here's what's so fascinating is there's virtually nothing you guys have said that I disagree with.
And there's nothing that you've said that I disagree with.
But yet I just simply enjoyed this movie a lot less. And part of it is also because we just reviewed Logan last week, which I thought was a kind of superhero action movie that actually felt like it had stakes.
This is way more fun than Logan, dude.
It is. It is, but I guess Logan is more a David Chen kind of movie, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So, all right.
Bleak, heartless, depressing. A David Chen movie.
Yeah, a David Chen joint. So, well, thanks so much for listening to our review of Kong Skull Island. Stay tuned for an After Dark discussing a bunch of random things. Find more episodes of our podcast at /filmcast.com. Email us at /filmcast@gmail.com. And our theme song is written by AdamWarrock.com. Our /Film Court music was from SimonMHarris.com. And also our spoiler music is from Kyle Hillinger. Before we move on, Brad Oman, where can people find more of your work on the internet this week?
I write at /Film pretty much every day, so you can check us out there. And you can find me on Twitter at Ethan_Anderton.
How about you, Jeff Kanata?
I'm on Twitter at Jeff Kanata, and I have several other shows. I have a video game show called DLC, which you can find at 5by5.tv/DLC. I have a comedy science show called We Have Concerns, which you can find at wehaveconcerns.com. And I just started a new daily gaming show called Newest, Latest, Best. It's on Anchor. You can find the link on my site or download the Anchor app from the App Store.
Yeah, or Anchor.fm is where you can find Jeff's new show. You can get a dose of Jeff Kanata daily in your head now. So
it's fun. I'm having a blast with it. I think people are liking it too. It's cool.
Cool. Find all my stuff at davechen.net or follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/davechen.net. Next week, hopefully Devindra will be back. I actually will not be here. I am going to be taking a vacation for the first time in a very long time. I think in the 9 years of the /Filmcast, there's maybe been, 6-7 episodes out of that whole time that I haven't been on the main episode. But next week, I think will be one of them. So,
well, you will be missed. but we will carry on without you.
You'll soldier on without me. I think the review is going to be Train Spotting 2, or T2, as it's called.
Isn't there already a T2?
Yeah, I know. They really did a bad job with the naming. Anyway, thanks for listening to the Slash Filmcast, the official podcast of SlashFilm.com. All right, Brad, you want to stick around, or you got to go? What's your situation?
What all are you guys talking about?
Nintendo Switch and Logan stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm gonna bail because I'm gonna go get some more work done since I gotta head out later on this evening.
No problem, dude. Well,
thanks for being with us, man.
Yeah, I hope you had fun.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on.
All right, take it easy. Bye.
All right, see ya.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Slash Filmcast After Dark. This is just our time to talk about a variety of random topics that we can't get to during the show or won't get to during the show. Generally, topics that are usually only of value to us alone, and so I don't expect anyone to ever listen to this segment.
Yeah, everyone stopped listening already.
Yeah, they stopped listening.
Brad left. Everybody's
Brad's gone already. It's just us. But we will also go over some of your emails, some of your feedback. One piece of feedback that we got, Jeff, from last week was I was reading off the name of donors, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people were asking, is Will Bona from Cockington, United Kingdom, a real person? Will Bona has not emailed us confirming whether or not he's a real person yet. So, but they
does that lead to more thought that he is real, or thought that he's less real?
Yeah, maybe he's so insulted by the question that he decided not to email us. Also, a lot of people were very disappointed that we brushed right past a listener who emailed in their name as Jenna Talia.
Did you pronounce it that way?
I think I pronounced it Jenny Talia.
So, I thought maybe you maybe said Talia or something.
Yeah, but... Talia. Yeah. So. My bad, guys. Oh, yeah. My bad.
That's
but Jeff, this is what you've done. You've now entered us into this arms race of donors who are going to try and come up with the most preposterous name possible.
It brings me such joy. And I think for Jenny, I think Jenny is a real winner. If you can slip it past us and we don't even get it, that is mwah, that's beautiful.
Chef's kiss. Mwah.
Yeah.
Delicious. All right, Jeff. Couple things we're going to talk about. Firstly, Nintendo Switch. We never got to this last week.
Hey, before we get to that, though, can I just last episode we were talking about?
Oh yeah.
Coming up with the next series for my wife and I to binge, and I asked you guys for suggestions, and I asked the audience for suggestions. I have gotten such awesome suggestions. So many people have tweeted me and made put real thought into it, and the thing that I'm so amazed by is how few people have suggested things that I've already seen, which I find to be so cool. I think that means that people are listening. They know what I've already seen. They are, they're talking about things that we haven't brought up on the show before. So I'm really delighted, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who sent in suggestions. I have quite the list now.
Well, what is on that list, Jeff? Like, what are some of the most commonly suggested things that people tweeted at you in terms of finding your next TV show?
It's a pretty lengthy list. The ones that got the most recommendations: Fleabag on Amazon. Everybody's talking about how cool that is. Very excited to see that. The Detectorists on Netflix. I got a lot of suggestions for The Detour, which is on TBS. And what else do I got here? Please Like Me on Hulu.
Oh my God, this is just degenerating to things you want people to do. Please Like Me on Hulu. Listen to my podcast on Amazon.
Yeah.
Love Me, for the love of God, Love Me, which is available on CISO, actually.
Actually does sound like a CISO show. Hap and Leonard. Borgen. Borgen's a show I've wanted to watch for a long time. My friends went absolutely nuts for Borgen.
Hap and Leonard? Sorry, I missed the other one. What is it called?
Hap and Leonard. Yeah, it's a Netflix show.
I have not heard of any of these.
Right? That's what's so great. I hadn't either. There's so many of these I did not even know existed, and that is exactly what I was hoping for from the audience. Is like, not people are like, oh, you should really watch Battlestar Galactica. It's like, no, yeah.
Well, good impression of our listeners, by the way.
Thank
Jeff.
you.
Very nicely done.
Although a lot of people suggested The Expanse, so I may end up doing that. I don't know if that's one my wife would be into, but I definitely should be watching The Expanse. I know that Devindra loves The Expanse as well. there's more if you want to keep going. Toast of London, Inside Number 9,
Huh.
yeah, Terrace House, which
Oh
I guess
yeah, that one.
that one.
That's a Dan Trachtenberg approved recommendation.
Yes,
so,
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So I have quite the list here. I'm very excited to dive in, and I'm just really, really grateful for the audience to be so thoughtful and considerate when making these suggestions. It's been great.
Cool. So, Jeff, I actually heard you talk about Nintendo Switch for a little bit on your DLC podcast, but thought you might want to share some reflections with our listeners here. Zelda Breath of the Wild sounds like one of the best games ever made, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
I was listening to another podcast today. They were talking about like how Nintendo typically their games. I was listening to Giant Bomb podcast. They're talking about how like Nintendo games typically are inspired by other Nintendo games, right? Like they don't like draw too much from outside influences. But Breath of the Wild feels like a game where they actually paid attention to all of the gameplay innovations that have happened in the last decade.
Yeah, it's wild. It's no pun intended.
It's almost a Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, it does definitely. You can see DNA from Dark Souls. You can see DNA from other open world games, but they really innovate. And for them to continually to be able to look at tried and true franchises that have been around for literally decades and approach them with fresh eyes, bring fresh ideas to the table, switch up the another pun, switch up the formula on these things. You know, there's a very established Zelda formula, and this game does it very differently than any other previous Zelda. All of that is very impressive for a company that you would think would be a little staid at this point, would be, you know, not willing to mess with the what's the term, the money the money horse, you know what I'm talking about, the
money pot.
No, there's a whatever. My brain's not working today. I all week long my wife has been gone, so I've been single dad, which means I don't get any sleep. So forgive me for not being able to think of anything more than usual when I can't think of things.
Money horse.
What's the phrase?
I don't know. I think I know what you're talking about.
It's the thing that brings you all the revenue. Your prize. Like, oh God, what's this? It's the
main something.
The chat room will save us. I know they will. I believe in them. Anyway,
prize stallion.
It's your main source of revenue. The thing that
this is some amazing radio.
Torturous. It's torturous. That's okay. No one is listening. Everyone has already.
Yeah, they've already all tuned out. So that's fine.
Anyway, Switch. Are you Money Train? No, Money Train. Switch? Do you want to buy one? Are you hoping to get one?
I don't know. It doesn't seem like a very
Cash
good
cow.
Yes,
cash cow.
Yes.
Cash cow, David.
Did you just come up with that yourself, or are you Googling, or?
No, I just came up with it.
Wow.
You know when you stop trying, your brain goes, "Oh, here's that thing you wanted." Yeah, cash cow. It's
nice,
that.
nice.
Money horse.
It
Money
was
horse.
like dollars and some kind of animal. Like
I said money horse, and I meant cash cow. That is so dumb.
Okay.
Oh God. Okay.
All right.
Well, luckily no one's listening.
So,
Are you interested? Are you gonna get a Switch? Are you interested in getting a Switch?
sorry,
David?
I'm still
David,
laughing.
are you there?
Okay. To be honest, Jeff, it doesn't seem like a good purchase right now.
Well, I agree. Unless you really want to play Zelda and don't own a Wii U.
Right. Because I've heard the Wii U version of Zelda is like very close.
Yeah,
in terms of gameplay.
Basically the same. Yeah.
But
the thing that's crazy, Dave, is that I'm sorry to interrupt you. The thing that's crazy is that this game was clearly designed for the Wii U, and the like weird vestige of that design process is still in the game. Like, I don't know how much you know about the game, but the first thing you get at the beginning is this pad that is clearly meant to represent the Wii U
Right.
gamepad, and there are, one of the main ways that Link like looks at the environment is by holding up the pad and looking through it. And obviously that was going to be the way it was going to work on Wii U, is you were going to physically lift the pad and look through the screen there as some kind of window into the world. And it's still in the game, and it doesn't work like that on Wii U anymore. And they clearly changed it because it was going to be on Switch now. So it's weird. You see this like thread that they never finished.
Right. I was actually considering, since the reviews for Zelda were so rapturous, like it's apparently one of the best games of the year, I was thinking of buying an old Wii U just to play that game.
I'm sure that I have a feeling that a bunch of people, I know that GameStop and places like that were offering trade-in value for Wii U you could put toward your Switch. I'm sure a lot of people did that, so you could probably get. I'm sure Wii U's are readily available.
Yeah, you can get like a Wii U for like $150 right now. Which is much less than a $300 Nintendo Switch, which you'd need to also buy accessories for and all that stuff. Here's my question about the Nintendo Switch: is the promise of this device is that you can plug it into your home TV, you can take it with you, or set it up at a restaurant or on a plane and play it with friends, depending on where you are. Do you feel like you're living in the future? Like, does this feel like the future in a way that other systems do not feel like the future?
I don't know about the future, but it certainly adds convenience. It's really, really nice, especially with my lifestyle now as a new dad. It's great, and the thing that it really captures with that portability, and specifically this game, is the pick up and play and set down. The thing that actually the DS did really well and 3DS did really well, which is, it goes into standby mode. It doesn't take, a minute and a half to boot up or anything. You can pick it up and you can play it for a short period of time and put it back down. And that's great. That's great. And one of the things I tweeted actually last night in reference to Zelda, it occurred to me that somehow magically they managed to create a game that feels overwhelmingly large and epic and grandiose, while at the same time being manageably bite-size. It is everything you do in Breath of the Wild is a sort of small gameplay chunk, but it fits into this tapestry of being this massive, overwhelmingly large world. So it really does play well as a portable game. It really does emphasize that portability. I brought my Switch with me to the screening of Kong last night, thinking if I get there early and I can just hang out in my car and play a little bit of Zelda. It's very convenient, which is nice.
Yeah, and I guess you don't feel like nervous going out in public with that thing. Like, just it's this fairly new and expensive piece of equipment that.
Well, I'm not going to leave it laying around, but yeah, I mean,
I guess I would just be worried that someone would just grab it out of my hands and run away all the time.
Has that happened to you before, Dave?
No, but I've seen like internet videos of this person sitting on a subway using their phone, and then someone just like literally grabs it and out the subway doors like right as they close. You know what I mean? And obviously that one internet video really stuck with me.
I guess so.
But yeah, I don't know. It feels like obviously you take your phone with you everywhere, and that's very expensive. But if it ever gets stolen, you can erase your data or whatever. But if someone were to steal your Wii U, they could just like resell it easily, I feel.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, this is just the stuff Dave Chen thinks about when he's thinking of buying a portable piece of electronics.
That's why you like Logan so much.
So overall, it sounds like you're happy with your Nintendo Switch purchase.
I mean, it is quite literally for me a Zelda machine.
Yeah.
I have no desire to play anything else that's available for it right now. Although I'm excited about some of the independent games that they've announced. They announced like 60 plus independent games. Most of them already released in other ways, but I'm hoping that in the very Nintendo way, we'll have 2 or 3 amazing experiences per year on it, and it'll justify my purchase. But I know that you can put in 100 hours on this Zelda and still not see everything. There is so much to it, so much to do, that I'm just having a blast. And it's a very different kind of experience than, for example, Horizon Zero Dawn, which just came out. I mean, this is a game that almost just wandering around aimlessly is really the preferred way of approaching it. It is about exploration in a way that Zelda's never have been, I don't think.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you're having a good time with it. It's not something I'll probably invest in for quite a long time.
Yeah.
But I am thinking about getting that used Wii U and maybe playing Zelda on it.
Not a bad way to do it. Not a
Yeah.
bad way to do it at all. Probably will save you a chunk of change, and there's really not going to be much on Switch to play for quite a while. But what an amazing time for video games right now. I mean,
Yeah.
this first 3 months of this year has been just astounding, the level of quality. And if we're going to continue that throughout 2017, it might be one of the best years of games ever.
Very cool. All right. Wanted to do some Logan follow-up, Jeff. So before we get to our Logan follow-up, I do want to say we're probably going to be spoiling Logan. So if you don't want to be spoiled on Logan, we're going to give you some ample time right now to stop this recording and come back later after you finish watching Logan. But I did get this tweet from Christopher. Christopher was responding to our triple boom last week.
Got a lot of people who love the triple boom.
An unprecedented boom event on the /filmcast. Christopher
The boom
responds
heard around the world.
the boom heard around the world. Christopher responds with this on Twitter. He wrote it this screenshot. It appears to be from Letterboxd. I'm not sure, but it's a review of Christopher. It's a review a review of Kate and Leopold, written by Christopher Sorgiovanni, who writes, quote, "Today I watched a film by James Mangold and starring Hugh Jackman as a 200-year-old guy who grew up in the 1800s. He spends most of his time with a now younger..." Let me do this again. Today I watched a film directed by James Mangold and starring Hugh Jackman as a 200-year-old guy who grew up in the 1800s. He spends most of his time now with a younger, strong-willed girl, and he's related to another character played by Liev Schreiber. His character's name begins with the letter L, and he struggles adjusting to his current outlandish predicament. But enough about Logan, guys. Quadruple boom.
Quadruple boom.
Quadruple boom.
It's a lot of boom. It's a lot of boom.
That's from at Chris_SRG_. Thanks for sending in the quadruple boom, Chris. That's our favorite of all the booms that I've received.
How come when Logan is like the plot of 100 movies, people are like, "Oh, that's cool," but when Avatar is like the plot of 100 movies, people are like, "Meh, meh, meh." You don't have to answer that. I'm asking rhetorically.
That was a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
On that note, by the way, Avatar is really starting to re-enter the cultural conversation, Jeff. Like in a serious way.
It never left, Dave. It never left.
There were Super Bowl. Was it Super Bowl or was it like Oscars? There was some
Oscars.
ads for the new Disney World Avatar attraction, and then this morning, Hollywood Reporter published a piece called "James Cameron Goes Inside Walt Disney World's Avatar Attractions."
I want to go there so badly. It's in Florida, though. It's not out here at Disneyland. It's only at Disney World.
The Valley of Moara is filled with lush forests, exotic plants, and floating mountains, plus signs that translate phrases from the film's unique language. The landscape becomes bioluminescent at night, and food offerings are vibrantly colorful.
How awesome is that?
This,
That's awesome.
this is
That's
the
objectively awesome, Dave. Come on.
objectively awesome.
Don't
Right,
you
there's no
think?
question. There's no subjectivity to that at all.
No.
John Lando, according to producer John Lando, quote, "This is the first time I feel like I'm walking in the movie because when we made the movie, it was a virtual world. We didn't build any of the Pandora sets." End quote.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Don't you think, Dave, don't you think that this land is going to be a real money horse for them?
It's gonna be- or whatever the horse equivalent of the Pandora world is. Like they rode
Yeah.
those things, right? Not
Yeah.
the Akron. It's the other. Come on, Jeff, help me out here. You're the Avatar expert
Who
here.
remembers, Dave?
I bet you didn't even know Akron was a thing, by the way.
No, I didn't know the name of the horse. It's true. I did not know the name of the horse thing.
What is the horse in Avatar?
Are you asking Siri right now?
I'm asking. There is an Avatar wiki.
Yeah, there is.
That documents every single animal in the movie Avatar.
That's going to come in handy for 5 more movies.
It's called the Dire Horse.
Dire.
And yeah, apparently, that's the thing where use their ponytail and blend in with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I don't know if we ever talked about this, but like, was it ever weird to you that the same thing they use for controlling horses is the same thing they use for mating?
Yeah. It did not slip by me. That yes.
Yeah.
Also, a new Avatar.
I hope the Avatar sequels reckon with the troubling implications of that.
Yeah. Well, one of those movies is just going to be all about that. Each of the movies is just. That's why there's 5 of them.
It's just one aspect of Na'vi life that's troubling.
Yeah.
And they go into it.
Yeah.
Like the second one is about how they have this incredibly important ponytail that has like all these nerve endings in it, but like they go to war, you know, and so what happens if the ponytail gets chopped off, you know?
Oof.
That's a College Humor skit waiting to happen right there.
Yeah.
Anyway, what were you gonna say?
There's a new Avatar video game got announced too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's gonna be good.
Well, we actually reviewed the first Avatar video game on the Totally Rad show, and I actually played all the way through that thing. It was not good. It was not good.
So, do you have any reason to think this will be better?
Hope. Does hope count? Hope.
Yeah. No, I guess. Anyway, it does look visually interesting. You know,
dude, floating rock. How did they make that happen? It looks like the rocks are floating, and the fact that it turns bioluminescent at night. That's rad. Come on.
Yeah.
That's rad.
I mean, I think, Jeff, if this park is successful, it is gonna be evidence of the power of marketing and demand generation. You know, because I don't think anyone was dying to see a Pandora Land.
Okay, so let's say I grant you that. Isn't it okay that the coolness of the place actually supersedes even the love of the IP? Like, it's a cool thing. It's just a cool. If this was Disney introduced this and it did nothing to do with any film ever. It's just like this new Disney part of Disneyland where you go and there's floating rocks and it turns bioluminescent at night. It's just objectively cool. That's like an amazing thing to be able to walk through. No?
Yeah, I mean, if you are into that aesthetic, you know. So,
if floating rocks are your jam,
if floating rocks and like neon colors all over nature are your thing, then yes, I agree. That just getting, you know, it's kind of like how here's an example, like Tron Legacy, right? In my opinion, pretty terrible movie.
Yes.
But it gave us a soundtrack that I still revisit because it's epic, right?
Right.
And so it's very frequent that movies end up creating pop culture artifacts that you enjoy more than the movie itself. And Jeff, if Pandora Land is something you enjoy more than Avatar, and that lots of people enjoy more than Avatar, hey, Godspeed, go with God.
I'm not,
etc.
Okay, fair, but my point was a little different than that. I'm trying to say that just independently of your opinion about the aesthetic, isn't that just an amazing thing that we have created in real life? No?
I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't seen the pictures of the floating rocks?
Yeah, no, I've seen the pictures, but you know,
you haven't been there.
I haven't been there. Yeah.
Prepare to get. You and I should go.
Kickstarter to go to Pandora Land.
Oh my God,
Dave and Jeff.
We should make like a 3-episode mini video series. You could shoot it. We could do like a little docu-series of like me trying to convince you it's awesome, and our trip to Florida. That would be amazing.
Let's break down this cost, right? We could probably do it for like $3,000, right? Like just fly in there.
Don't throw out a number now because I don't know, man. I don't know. $3,000 just to get into Disney World. I think it's really expensive.
All right. Well, Jeff, maybe we can cost this out, and if listeners really want this, which I don't imagine they do.
Well, no one's listening right now, but this isn't. We're gonna need to get a money horse for this, Dave. Oh man!
All right. Two things I want to mention about Logan.
Wait. Dustin Carlson in the chat says we could review Wizarding World as well.
Oh yeah,
a twofer. Because I've never been there.
I don't think these could be really. I've been thinking about what my next documentary project is. I entered a short doc into a bunch of film festivals this year. I don't think this could be that. I wish it could be, though. I wish it could be, Jeff. But this is probably be more like an internet video that like people get a lot of enjoyment of watching someone experience this stuff. But hey, if there's demand, Jeff, we will go where the people send us.
Okay.
And especially where the people are paying us. So, in any case, let's move on. Logan. All right. So, wanted to cover some Logan stuff. Firstly, I wanted to go through I feel the need to acknowledge that there were a bunch of people that leapt to your defense, right? And said, that they shared your opinion of Logan.
I was so heartened by the response that I've gotten I mean, there's some people who are like, "Oh, you broke my heart. How could you?" But many, many, many people said, "Oh, thank you for giving voice to the people who just liked it, who merely liked it."
Here's something that I wish I had articulated a little bit better. So I'd said, like, I'm not even angry, I'm not irritated, I'm just disappointed. And I wanted to clarify that statement a little bit more about my disappointment, which is just that it was because we see this movie Logan here, that's doing all these interesting things that other superhero films haven't done before, but you seem to be much more happy, or you seem to enjoy much more these movies that play it safe. Like Avengers: Age of Ultron, which in my opinion was a really incoherent movie that I did not enjoy that much. That's a movie that you really liked, and you said so on the podcast. And yet this is a movie that you seem to like less. Logan is a movie you seem to like less, but that, in my opinion, is way more innovative in the superhero field, I guess, than Avengers: Age of Ultron was. And that was confusing and disappointing for me. I guess I wanted to just bring that up and see if you had any thoughts. Like, am I mischaracterizing or misunderstanding your opinion?
No, and I think it probably points to my bias to the characters, in the sense that Age of Ultron, for its faults, still presents the characters as I find them most joyous, as I appreciate seeing them most. There are still these awesome, cool character moments with Hawkeye, and there's these Captain America still doing Captain America type stuff, and I just love being around those characters that have meant so much to me over my life. And Logan is not a joyous time with those characters. It's not fun to be around. Logan is a cantankerous old crank in this movie, and Professor Xavier is dropping F-bombs and despicable in a lot of times, and kind of angry and unhappy. And maybe that has a lot to do with the fact that I'm just not enjoying being around them. But make no mistake, I do appreciate, as I said in our review, I appreciate where the superhero in live action form genre has gone, with Legion, with Logan, with Deadpool. Like, the fact that we're sort of moving into a place where these properties can be handled in a much more daring way and do some much more interesting things. I'm down for that. I like it. I'm not asking for every movie to be a Marvel Studios movie, and I'm not asking for every superhero experience to be the same kind of experience. I appreciate that. I just didn't enjoy my experience watching Logan as much as I enjoyed my experience watching Age of Ultron.
Gotcha. Totally fair. Thank you for clarifying that. All right. I wanted to read this to you, Jeff, because it really struck me. Logan has a lot of metaphors. X-Men has a lot of metaphors, allegory in it.
Yes.
And this is one I read and reblogged on my website, davechen.net, that I thought, like, when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, that is it. It's so obvious. I don't know why I didn't articulate it or think of it that way before, but that's it. Anyway, I wanted to read this piece. It's by Micah Peters from The Ringer, and he wrote an article called Fathers and Wolverines. I'm going to read a piece to you from it. He writes here, when Logan begins, there's any number of directions it could take. It could be a sullen cogitation on violence, a protest piece in the age of Trumpism. It's not a coincidence that most non-Wolverine characters are young, non-white, and targeted. A prestige drama about death and loss. It is all of these at various points, but the film it chooses to be makes it a superhero movie I've been waiting 17 years for. At its core, Logan is about hard-earned pessimism, the inertia in which it suspends you, and the practical difficulty of overcoming both. The vehicle for overcoming that pessimism and inertia is fatherhood. About a quarter into the movie, Logan's charged with caring for a young girl with adamantium claws who, like him, is given to fits of homicidal rage. Exhausted by life and waiting impatiently to die, he doesn't want to be the one to teach Laura Kinney, or X-23, how to quell these urges, but there's no one else to do the job. The scene that appears in the trailer where Charles croaks from the back seat that someone has come along turns out to be in reference to a family whose truck was run off the road, but really it's an epigram for the movie, a call to lead by example. And I just thought it was fascinating. Like this idea that like fatherhood, your life can be in a complete state of disrepair and a disaster, and you might not give a shit about yourself or the world anymore. But that fatherhood can be this thing that regalvanizes you in ways that you hadn't otherwise imagined. Didn't know if you felt that way, as a reality, or if you felt like the movie did a good job of bringing that to light.
Wow. Heavy stuff. I think that those are two separate discussions for me, and I'm happy to dive into both. I mean, I think as someone who had his first child at the end of 2016 in America, I am definitely living that theme, right? That idea of hard-earned pessimism and feeling a sense of foreboding potential. This idea that the world is not the place you want to bring a child into.
Yeah.
And then doing that and having that revitalize and give purpose in a way that you've never felt before. I certainly feel that. I certainly am living that every day, and it's not one thing. It's not one direction. It's not one feeling like, oh my God, I feel revitalized. It's wavering every day. It's like, oh my God, am I the worst person ever for bringing a kid into this world? That environmentally we're headed down a path to oblivion. Socially, we're in a place where people seem to be hating each other more than loving each other. All these, maybe hippy-dippy ideas, but certainly ideas that I feel to my very core that I definitely am concerned about. I definitely think about every day when my son wakes up. Did I do him a disservice by bringing him into this? And then the other side of going, oh my God, this is why I take breath every day, is to be a father to this boy and to teach him and give him a sense of moral compass and to impart any kind of wisdom I've gained from my years of being on this earth, and all those things, all those cliches. So that is certainly something that I'm experiencing in a very real way. I wish I got that more from the movie. Maybe it would have landed on me in a more powerful way. I respect those that did get that. I know a lot of people felt that and felt that father. I mean, a lot of the feedback that I've gotten this week is like, Jeff, how could you have felt that way being a new dad and all this stuff? Like, why didn't this movie hit you? Fatherhood and fathers and their children in movies often are the things that I resonate with very strongly. I don't know. I can't put my finger on why it didn't happen this time. But I think maybe my fanboyism got in the way, perhaps. I don't know.
Fanboyism of what, though?
Just sort of my feeling about the characters, like the baggage that the characters bring to the table. And I don't know. I'm just guessing there because I feel like that's what I'm going to hear from the audience of this episode. People aren't listening right now, but anybody that might be, I think I get accused of that a lot, and maybe there's some truth there that my baggage with superhero characters,
that you want the characters to be a certain way. You have preconceived notions of what they should be, and
yeah.
If they don't live up to that, then it somehow is not as good as if they were that way.
Correct. Yeah. And I think that, when I talked about Logan feeling like an Elseworlds tale or a what if tale, feeling like, you can take these characters and put them in a situation, but that's not the real version of these characters.
Yeah. Interesting. And for people who aren't as like devoted to the comics as you are, such as myself, it doesn't feel that way. You know, it just feels like
Right.
this is the next step of that character. You know, it doesn't feel like here's some imagining of what it is.
Right.
But in any case, and that part of it is that the comics, you know, those characters, like, is Wolverine still, you know, a vibrant and changing character in comics now? Is he?
Well, I don't think comics and vibrant and changing don't tend to go. You know, comics is about, you know, consistency and the fact
Sure,
that
I just mean, is he still a character that's being published regularly? You
Oh,
know?
certainly.
Yeah. So you know, Logan probably differs dramatically from like how he's being depicted now, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Did you have that takeaway from it? I mean, I feel like my you know, boom goes the dynamite last week when I compared it to Last of Us.
Yeah.
I feel like Last of Us landed on me much more profoundly than Logan did, and it's basically doing the same kind of thing. But maybe it's because, you know, I didn't have any expectations for Ellie and what's his name. I don't know. Did you come away from the movie feeling the way that described?
Not really about fatherhood specifically. I think what was most moving to me about Logan was the idea that this is a person who had never really experienced love, you know, and that's why they had that. Like, I thought you know, not to keep harping on the comparison, but I thought the farmhouse scene in Logan was far more effective to me than the fairly similar scene in Avengers: Age of Ultron. You know, that this is showing him what like a normal life would be like, and you know, Professor Xavier saying, you know, you still have time, right? Like it's not too late for anyone, no matter what crimes you've committed or what sins you've done. Like, you still have time to experience what love is, what family is. That idea is very profound to me. You know, that like this person beyond redemption, like so not so much like the fatherhood like galvanizes you out of it. Although the reason I read that excerpt is because thinking about it, it really does strike me as a fatherhood allegory. But yeah, the whole family thing, that really did get to me, especially because that whole family that they visit like gets brutally slaughtered. So
yeah, I just wish it didn't. I thought it was a cheap way to do it with having it be, you know, young Logan. I just and having, I just felt like it was a cheap way for me to be fooled into feeling something because they believe they're being murdered by him. You know, I don't know.
I think the thrust of that scene that I came in with is just that, like, it's his fault in some way that they're being, like, it's a young version of him, but it's also like they wouldn't be there if it weren't for him. You know what I mean? So to me, the scene did its job in terms of like, hey, death and destruction follows him wherever he goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, totally can understand why that's part of the movie, like him facing off himself, like against himself, younger version. I totally understand why that part is frustrating or annoying to people.
Yeah.
Why don't you read this email from Steve Alvarez, who wrote into /filmcast@gmail.com. This is the last thing we'll do. Steve writes in, as Jeff would say, I've been a Marvel zombie from way back, and I regret to add I've hated every single one of Bryan Singer's X-Men films, as well as The Last Stand and Wolverine Origins. These films had always felt like they were merely about characters with superpower, superficial battles, and catchphrases. The exception was Matthew Vaughn's X-Men First Class. Needless to say, I was cautiously optimistic about Logan. By the time we got to the scene on the farm in Logan, I'd already decided this was easily the best X-Men film of them all, perhaps one of the best comic book genre films to date. On the farm, I had incorrectly assumed the film was near its end. By this point, there had already been so much earthly pain and suffering throughout the film, wonderfully expressed through great writing, an appropriate amount of humor, and excellent acting by a convincing cast. Of course, I was wrong about the ending, and the film continued. Eventually, we got to the scenes in the woods of North Dakota, and as promised, Logan, the X-Man we connected with most, finally began to die. Somewhat unexpectedly, I found myself holding back tears. But I wasn't prepared for when Laura cried out, "Daddy." That is when I completely lost it. Right there, next to 7 of my friends. And all the triggers throughout the movie began an unrelenting assault on my emotions to the soundtrack of Johnny Cash, a singer a late father figure of mine had loved. Long before I met my wife, I dared to prepare for a life of fatherhood. I thought about what type of job would best afford me time, training, and adequate income. Within a year of meeting my wife, we began to discuss where we would raise our child, what values we would instill, and how we'd manage as many of life's curveballs as our imagination could conjure up. Sort of like a mental danger room, if you will. For the past 8 years, for the past 8 months or so, my wife and I have started visiting medical professionals, discovering that it may not be so simple for us. And then the unimaginable happened. Suddenly, we were living in a country that had changed its trajectory. And my wife's greatest fear of raising a child in the country where Trayvon Martin's killer walks free became my own fears multiplied. In the past few months, I did what any self-respecting, progressive, minority, feminist, empathetic human being would do. I marched, I wrote letters to representatives, I educated, I donated time and money. But I also did one other thing. I grew curious about how other countries are responding to the Syrian refugee crisis and why Canadians appeared so welcoming and tolerant. I learned about how the Great North identified with the values of multiculturalism and had maintained a very inclusive immigration policy. And I began to ask myself, if my parents could both independently immigrate to this country with the hopes of finding a better future for themselves and their unborn children, why should I feel too embarrassed to do the same? For weeks, I've been wrestling with the idea of staying and fighting to make this country a more hospitable place for my unborn child versus finding them a home that's welcoming, sparing them the fate of having to fight for recognition, dignity, safety, and humanity. And then there's Hugh Jackman on an IMAX screen performing a much more literal, much more dramatic version of the debate that's playing out in my mind. This is the main reason I loved the X-Men growing up. To me, they weren't just characters with extraordinary talents, fighting superficial battles that ended in catchphrases. They were members of a minority class with their own civil rights leader, some advocating for peace, some struggling with their temptation to radicalize, given their extraordinary abilities. One of the key elements that previous X-Men films seemed to lack was an earthly depiction of the pain that comes with persecution. End quote. That email comes in from Steve Alvarez.
Beautiful.
Beautiful email. He points out one of the themes that the X-Men movies have always had, which is it is in large part, or X-Men comics, X-Men movies, it has been in large part about the minority experience, right? It's about people hate you, they think you're different, they are passing legislation to come after you, to abridge your rights. And what are you going to do about it? You have a bunch of choices. You can stay and fight for truth, liberty, the American way, or you can give up, or you can try and harm these people, in some really awful way. I'm sorry, go ahead. Logan feels in some ways like the culmination of a lot of those themes, over the course of the last few X-Men films, and it feels like a fitting culmination given the current political environment we live in. So,
as a 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, when I was, into the X-Men and I had a Wolverine poster on my bedroom wall, I mean, my friends had, car posters or jet posters, or I had, Art Adams drawing Wolverine. And I love the Wolverine. I mean, Chris Claremont's run on X-Men is... there was nothing more precious to me at that time. I certainly didn't have the minority American perspective, but the thing that's so beautiful about allegory, right, is that it works for any kind of experience, because I, as a nerd, as somebody who was literally, chased home and beat up and stuff, I related to it on that level. Right. I thought I was somebody that was ostracized because of the way I was, because I liked nerd stuff and was, raised my hand in class and wanted to answer the question and all that stuff. And obviously, not as profound an experience as the one you described. And, there are certainly a gradient there, but I was able to relate to it, and I was able to relate to those characters. And I think that it's, clearly when those first X-Men movies were coming out was a different time, a different cultural moment. And certainly as, Bryan Singer as the director, I think, and the fact that it was coming out at a specific time, I think the prevalent metaphor was for homosexual rights, right? That was the sort of central theme, the central cultural battle happening around those years.
Certainly in X2, it was pretty explicitly about that, in my opinion. And Bryan Singer himself is gay, so
right,
yeah.
And I think that's that was great that those movies could speak to that, as gay rights were such a big part of the cultural conversation, and it seems crazy now that it was such a big deal, because it's such a given now.
It's I mean, it's definitely more given. It seems like we're gonna have to refight a lot of battles.
Sure. Yeah,
in
especially
the
with
days
that
ahead.
vice president. But
Yeah.
one of the things that I admire most about Logan is that it takes. I mean, it very much is about immigration. It's about going across the border. Quite literally, the end act of the film is about crossing a border, right?
Yeah.
And I love that about it. I love that it was about a lot of those kids at the end are minority kids. It speaks directly to the issues of today, and I think that's what works so well with science fiction and genre storytelling in general. When it's at its best, it really is an allegory for real things that will resonate. And even if you don't connect to it on a conscious level, if you're like I was, a 10-year-old kid who just kind of was relating to it on my own way, it still is a lesson learned, and I think that's a positive thing.
Yeah, I agree completely, and I think one of the strengths of Logan is that this battle, the civil rights battle, whatever you want to call it, whatever battle you're fighting that you relate to, Logan is a film that really shows you the cost of it.
Yeah,
and I think that's what listener Steve was writing in about, and one of the many reasons I found the movie so powerful and effective. So keep those emails coming in, /filmcast@gmail.com. Thanks to the 18 people who lasted this long in the podcast and are still listening.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys next week. Or you'll see without me. Jeff and David will be here.
Yeah, Dave, have a great vacation, buddy.
I'll try, man.
Are you going to share what you're going to be doing?
Yeah, heading to Hawaii. So
amazing.
Yeah,
wonderful.
It'll be fun. Going to take a lot of photos. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram @DaveChensky if you want to see those. But
cool.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys soon. Enjoy Trainspotting 2 without me.